then that highlights very well the situation, of course, in that part of the former Eastern Ukraine, which is sort of not say Russian dominated, but majority of the people are Russian, where the uprising or whatever we call it was after what happened in Maidan, and now it's under the Ukrainian control, and it looks like that it's very difficult situation there, because of course there is a sort of a vicious circle of suspicion because part of the population, I suppose, is in solidarity with the republics, so-called self-proclaimed republics, and the other parties with the Kiev, and that of course brings a lot of suspicion on people, and that kind of things that you were telling. Slavyansk is of course one of the worst places to be. But what is, because there's a lot of beliefs going around, and now of course I don't want, maybe we just finish this with the speculation of what will happen this spring when it turns to summer, that at least the international media, at least the Western media, there is a sort of a big threat that that there is a sort of concentration of military forces, that there might be an attack on Mariupolin especially. It was just a couple of days ago that Helsingin Sanomat made a report on that. But do you see that possible scenario, or do you think that the ceasefire might finally take its place, or are we going to see the renewal of the fighting?
Well, actually, I was in Mariupol just 4 days ago. Actually, I left Mariupol 4 days ago, and I had stayed there and in some neighboring settlements to Mariupol for a week. So I do feel the situation there. So even during the ceasefire, when I was in a village of Sartana, which is something like 20-minute drive from Mariupol, every day there were sounds of shelling. Very distant shelling, but kind of distant, 8 kilometers away, because 8 kilometers away from Sartana there is a village of Shirokino. And it used to be a gray zone, it used to be a neutral zone, so to say, but then battalions, the Azov battalion, moved in Shirokino. So there's armed activities resumed over Shirokino. And for instance, what the problem with these things and the situation in Mariupol is also as much complicated as in Slavyansk. And but at the same time, so what people very often in Europe lack to understand, unfortunately there is enough information about what Ukraine is. Okay, there is the West and the East, but do you know that, for instance, this Mariupol is surrounded by big villages like Sartana, which are inhabited by ethnic Greeks. There are a lot of ethnic Greeks whose native language is Old Greek, who have preserved their language, their traditions, their culture, who identify themselves as Greeks, who live in Donbass. And their language of communication is Russian, while in their families they still use Old Greek. And I lived in those families of those Greeks, and I did hear how people in their 40s, 50s had to turn to Old Greek, to their parents in their 70s and 80s, because their parents in their 70s and 80s actually find it a lot more easier for them to understand the people speaking Greek rather than Russian, and they don't speak Ukrainian at all. So there's, in this village of Sartana, which is not very small, actually there are 11,000 ethnic Greeks living in this village of Sartana. All in all, in the Donetsk region, there are 36 settlements inhabited by ethnic Greeks. You can imagine how big this number is. So when you speak about Donbass, you shouldn't speak about Russians. There are a lot more other ethnic groups presented there. And now what about the attitude of, let's say, well, of these ethnic Greeks? Actually, there have been also casualties, civilian casualties in this village, and that was the reason why I was there. So I was staying with the families who had relatives either wounded or killed in several shellings of Sartana. And there is a problem with this village is that this is their headquarters of the absolutely infamous Azov battalion. Today in the Metro newspaper there was an article about a young Finnish man being wounded in Ukraine. And actually the article was very vague about which side that Finnish volunteer was with. But it was given there that he was with Azov battalion. Azov battalion is one of those formations which which has gained very bad fame in Ukraine because of two things. Because of their neo-Nazi inclination, including of their chief commander, and also about the fact of quite many people from extreme right circles being fighters in this battalion. Azov battalion is stationed in this particular village of Sartana. So there's, for instance, I talked to one young Greek man who told me his own story. He was beaten by Azov battalion because he had a Greek banner, a small symbol of Greece in his car. So his car was stopped, this Greek banner was broken and smashed. He was given a Ukrainian flag instead. And he was accused, when he was beaten, he was accused of being a separatist, a Greek separatist. So this is the situation. So it's a lot more complex than you can imagine. And when, for instance, people in Sartana were killed in October last year, when a mourning procession was leaving the cemetery, and there were three missiles which hit the crowd of 100 people, leaving several people dead and a lot more other wounded. So it was Greece who came to their support. So I was really amazed when I saw certificates issued by the Greek embassy in Ukraine, according to which they donated 20,000 hryvnias to each family which suffered in that particular attack in October 14th last year. But when you talk to people in Sartana, also about survivors and witnesses and victims of that attack, and when you ask them about the direction of the attack and everything, so they tell that they do blame Azov battalion for that. And they show, actually, we worked with those witnesses because they decided to take that attack to the attention of the European Court on Human Rights. So we talked to quite many survivors, witnesses, and analyzed a lot of documents also prepared by Human Rights Watch on that. So, and the people in Sartana, these ethnic Greeks, they tell that they became victims of that particular Azov battalion, which is still stationed in their village. So, and if you think that they are pro-Russians, no, they are not. Actually, when I ask them what their inclinations, what they want to achieve, they tell, we want to be left in peace. You know, They are farmers. When it was the Soviet Union, they tell me, so they made fortune. Actually, it looks a very rich village with very good houses. They tell that they used to sell pumpkin seeds in Russia and in Poland, and they traveled a lot, and so they built those fancy houses just selling those pumpkin seeds. And they make pumpkin oil, and they have vineyards and everything. So they tell, we want to remain what we are. We want to be farmers. And we want to be left in peace. We want to speak our language, which is Greek. We want to communicate in Russian, and we want to be Ukrainians. But we don't want army in our village. So that's their best dream.